In this module, we're going to dive into the topic of photogrammetry, focusing on the basics and the most concrete aspects to give you an idea of how this concept can be integrated with ArchiCAD. We will use two additional tools, Google Earth Pro for simulating the survey and ArchiSoft Metashape to generate a point cloud mesh model and other results that we will eventually import into ArchiCAD. As always, take the course at your own pace. Feel free to pause the videos whenever you need to revisit any concepts and make sure to pay attention to all the material and content I have shared throughout the lessons. Alright, so let's start off our section commenting a little bit about specifics. This is going to be about photogrammetry, a really interesting topic that I'm going to comment a little bit about what's the concept behind this title, okay? What photogrammetry integrates, how you can work photogrammetry, and also the benefits of this concept, okay? We're also going to use two extra software besides ArchiCAD. We're going to use Google Earth Pro to generate the survey, the model survey of a random building that we can find anywhere in the world. You can take pretty much any example, because for this case, we're not going to use totally real case scenario using drones and using really specialized equipment. In order to simulate this in a really practical and simple way, we're going to do the workflow in a completely digital environment. Okay, so this is the reason why we take Google Earth Pro, to simplify or to replace the drone process or the specialized scanners with this amazing tool. If you want something realistic, instead of Google Earth Pro, you can go ahead, use a drone to create a survey or mapping of a region, topography region, or you can also go ahead and use special scanners to scan the environment. Okay, so pretty much with Google Earth Pro, we're going to scan a random building, the environment for a building, and then using Metashape, which is another external tool I'm going to comment in a little bit, we're going to import all the photos, all the survey data into Metashape. So we can start off by aligning the photos in the space, then we create a point cloud model, okay, in ArchiSoft Metashape, and then we proceed to generate a mesh model, and we can also visualize the model in multiple formats, visualize all types and sorts of data. And then finally, the idea here is we generate this photogrammetric model. So in the end, we can import everything into ArchiCAD and review the benefits that will open up so many opportunities while using the photogrammetric model of a site. Okay, so ArchiCAD fully supports this type of model. The idea here is not just import data, but also review where this data comes from and what the generation of this data also implicates. So this is the idea for this section. Yes, we're going to go a little bit far from ArchiCAD into other software, but in the end, we're going to integrate everything inside ArchiCAD so you can practice a little bit. Alright, so first things first, what is photogrammetry? If we take a really technical definition from the National Geography Institute provided by Spain, well, we find this definition obviously in Spanish, but let me translate it. Photogrammetry is a technique which purpose is to study and define with precision a shape, dimensions and position in space for any type of object, using essentially measurements made with one or multiple photographies from that object. Okay, now this definition is a little bit rigid, but we can take it as a base to define what is photogrammetry. Let me show you a little bit better. We got, for example, one of my favorite examples, which was from a competition really long ago. It has multiple years. It has already passed, which was Omuli Museum of the Horse proposition. Okay, you had to propose a new type of museum proposal for the project. And yes, for the site, the interesting thing here is that this competition, the organizers shared with us this type of model. Okay, if you notice, it looks a little bit completely realistic. Okay, this is a old building that you had to renovate with a new proposal, and these are the surrounding elements. Okay, so the interesting thing here is that, for example, in my web browser, I can navigate this model, and you can notice it's completely 3D. It looks completely as realistic as possible, and you can also visualize the different textures. You can visualize the different openings right over here. You can visualize, for example, the fallen element over here. You can visualize, for example, the type of foundation here. You can visualize this detail, this other detail, etc. Okay, so we could say that's a really impressive 3D site model that we can use in order to design our proposal. And the best thing here is that we can visualize everything as completely realistic and exact as it would be in real life. Okay, another example is, for example, this extra detailed part of the model. If we keep zooming in, it's completely insane because it's going to get just even more and more detailed, up until the point that we can even start inspecting the different plans and different shapes going on over here. So yeah, this is definitely a huge advantage that technology will provide us over the traditional methods of creating site plans or topographical types of measurements, okay, or topographical site plans. Because you can visualize the colors, you can visualize where the rust is going on, you can visualize and measure each of the distances. So yeah, the interesting thing here is that this won't definitely compare with a traditional site plan. Another quite amazing example from Instagram, one of the contacts I got over here, locally speaking, high-tech reality capture. They usually post a lot of content related to photogrammetry, and they use multiple techniques. One done with 3D scanners, and another one which is done with using a drone that overflies the site. Okay, to give you a quick example, these are the types of special 3D scanners. So for example, you position the scanner in place inside a space, you use a special application, and the lens of the scanner is going to start rotating in multiple directions in order to scan that space. And then in your tablet, in real time, you can visualize the 3D scan of that space. Okay. Another example is done using, for example, drones. Okay, drones integrated with cameras. You can start your route. You can plan the route ahead. The drone will take multiple photos of the environment in a 3D manner, in an orbiting way, and then in a zigzag way from the very top. So you can program the flyby in whichever manner you wish to do so, and then you import the photos into a specialized software where the software will create a point cloud model and then transfer the point cloud model into a mesh type of model. Okay, so yeah, this is quite an interesting example. You can then visualize a point cloud, you can create sections, you can take measurements of the site, you can create nodes, you can create elevation maps, you can create orthomosaics. There's a lot of stuff and a lot of results that you can create from this type of capture. Okay, and of course, one of the most famous examples we got, for example, Google Maps over here. And if you notice something interesting going on over here, right now I'm located in France. Here's the Eiffel Tower, okay? But all the city is pretty much digitalized in 3D. And this, of course, is also done thanks to photogrammetry. But the thing here is that Google is not using drones, Google is not using scanners, because the scale is completely on a different level. The scale is completely huge. So what's going to happen is that a plane is going to create a flyby, okay? It's going to was satellite photos and information created with the flyby of a plane in zigzag. It's going to take multiple photos, and then the photos are going to be interlocked with the software in order to create this type of model. So In long story short, you got multiple ways of creating photogrammetric models, pretty much based upon photos, except the scanners which already scan and generate the model directly. But in the end, everything bases up on the real environment going on, and with photogrammetry we pretty much digitalize that environment. Okay, you can also see if you're a gamer, if you like video games, you can always see the latest video games use many scans from 3D which totally look realistic. So hopefully with this I can illustrate a little bit the advantages, a little bit the idea behind photogrammetry. What we're going to do for this section, in long story short, is we're going to use Google Earth Pro in order to create a simulation of a flyby of a drone, okay, which will take multiple photos. And with these photos, we're going to recreate the measurements, the digital model in our own software in one moment, in order to finally input this information into ArchiCAD and use the advantages provided by photogrammetry. Alright, so before we get into the practical part, what we have to do is install two extra tools that will allow us to create a photogrammetric model and import the information into ArchiCAD. So the first one will be Google Earth Pro, because we're not going to use a physical drone for these lessons. Now we're going to use a scanner. The idea here is to simulate the flyby of a drone and then replicate the flyby with Google Earth Pro in order to generate images and use these images as a replica of what we get with a drone. Okay, so in a more simple manner, just to illustrate what is going to be the workflow, we're going to use Google Earth Pro. Installing Google Earth Pro is the easiest possible thing in the world. We simply Google right over here, Google Earth Pro, well, Earth versions, we got this link over here, let's click it. And yeah, you pretty much simply want to get Google Earth Pro on desktop. Let's click over here. We get this button, yeah, download Earth Pro on desktop. Let's visualize what we get over here. We get the license agreement. We can deactivate this one if you don't want to send data to Google. Accept and download. And yeah, pretty much you will download this installer. And once you are done, you simply select the installer, right click it, run as administrator. If you're on Mac, hopefully, yeah, we can visualize if we get Google Earth for Mac, or we can also go ahead with Google Earth for Google Chrome, which should be a little bit also possible in Mac. But yeah, just give Google Earth a few seconds. Okay, it's pretty much done. Well, it says it's pretty much done. I don't really believe it. So it took less than 3 seconds to install. And once you are done, you should be able to see this new icon over here, Google Earth Pro. Let's double click it. So yeah, it's going to open up the software, and there it is. Okay, so yes, pretty much straightforward. There's nothing else that we have to do. Pretty much we are done installing Google Earth Pro, because what we want is to be able to, I'm just going to pick any random city over here. But yeah, what we want to do is to be able to visualize one city in 3D. Let's see if we can activate 3D buildings and activate terrain. There it is. And then let's see if it starts loading the photogrammetric model. And there it is. So this is what we want to visualize also in Google Earth. The same stuff I already showed you previously in Google Maps. But what we're going to do is create multiple photos using Google Earth Pro. Right, so let's start off our workflow with Google Earth Pro, where we want to take, you can take pretty much anything that has a 3D view, a 3D photogrammetric view, in order to make different snapshots and then reconstruct the model. As an example, I'm going to take a random building we got over here somewhere in France, which is this hospital we got over here. This is just an interesting shape completely for experimentation purposes. It's a totally random building. You can take pretty much anything you want to import into ArchiCAD. You can take the model wherever you want and simply scan it. The workflow is pretty much the same. Okay, so for this case, I'm going to focus on this whole building, maybe with a little bit of context. That's the only thing I'm going to do. The question is, okay, this is a building, but where the heck is it located? Okay, I'm going to include some coordinates over here, so you can pretty much locate the building with these coordinates: 48 north, 1220 east. Okay, you can simply type in this as the same coordinates over here, take them and simply type in. Let's close this window in Google Earth Pro. Let's Ctrl V and press search. Okay, so you can simply search these coordinates and Google Earth Pro is going to do pretty much everything for you. There it is. Okay, so clearly we have found the same building in Google Earth Pro. Okay, if you want to locate this in a secondary manner without coordinates, we can always, for example, let's turn on the labels over here. I'm just going to give you the quick location of this building. Let's click over here, and it's going to be 74 BD de Port Royal, something like that. So you got Paris, you got the Eiffel Tower over here, and then you got this Jardin du Luxembourg, and then you can find over here le Hospital d'Instruction de Armée du Val-de-Grâce, something like that. So just take this building. Once you have located the building you want to reconstruct, what we can do is just in a quick and simple manner. Yes, you can use these buttons to orbit around the building to simulate the movement of a drone. Yes, you can do so with the mouse. Okay, how do you navigate in Google Earth Pro? Well, you can use a mouse wheel to zoom in, zoom out, left click to pan out, to drag the view, and then you can press shift and left click to orbit around. Okay, but it's going to be much easier to simulate the fly through of the drone if you, for example, press and hold down left shift key and then combine this with the left arrow. So if you do so, you can see that the movement of the camera is going to create a perfect orbit. Okay, it's going to perfectly orbit around the building. You can do so with the right arrow key. Okay, so I'm holding now left shift key and the right arrow key. You can also press up arrow, you can also press down arrow. So pretty much this is how you can also orbit around the building. Just remember this small tip because it's going to be really useful in a moment. Okay, you can always, for example, use simply the arrow keys to simulate the fly through, for example, in a zigzag manner. Okay, so yeah, just remember these movements because we're going to use them in a second. Okay, so take a second, take a minute, make sure you locate the building in first place, and also make sure you practice a little bit the navigation in Google Earth Pro. Now, if for some reason you're not getting this type of 3D view, the photogrammetry model, keep in mind that right over here in the layers in Google Earth Pro, this has happened to me before, no worries, but what you have to do is activate two things. Activate 3D buildings. Make sure it's definitely not just 3D buildings, because these ones, if I remember well, are the ones that are modeled with SketchUp, and we don't really want that, okay? Make sure you activate the photorealistic option right over here, and also make sure you activate terrain. You have to activate these three options in general, and this is how you get the 3D view, the 3D photogrammetry view in general, okay? So what are we going to do in this case? There are two different ways on how you can create the images. In first place, how about we delete the search? Maybe delete the label over here. Maybe I simply search for the building manually, because it's not going to delete the label, and that's going to represent the issues. So maybe I'll just search for it manually. Just 1 second. There it is. So the important thing here would be to not have any labels active. If you got in layers, you have places, photos, roads, borders and labels, that's going to be an issue, because when we start exporting everything, it's going to have more info that we don't really want to showcase. Because in real life, when you take a photo with a drone, it's only going to be the building. So that's the point here. Make sure that you also deactivate pretty much everything except 3D buildings and terrain. So everything looks as blank as possible, okay? Now you can do the fly through with the drone in 2 different ways. Let's position the north over here just in case, or maybe something like that. You can do this in 2 different ways. Make sure you position the camera as perpendicular as possible. And what you can do is make a zigzag fly through, okay, something like this. Then you move to the right, down over here, right, up, right, down, right, up. This would be a series of movements, perfectly valid, and it will perfectly work once we input the results into ArchiCAD Metashape. Now, the second way would also be possible if, for example, you create an orbital fly-through. Okay, so you simply orbit around the building in this manner. You take a bunch of photos, and in this manner, you can also generate your model, and it's going to work perfectly. In this case, what I believe is the best manner would be to combine both methods. You create a fly-through like following the zigzag movement, something like this, okay? And then, just to make sure, you also create a basic fly-through with an orbital type of movement. You orbit around the building just for an extra layer of information. So, I think that with these 2 fly-throughs, we have more than enough information and we shouldn't experience any issues when creating the model, okay? So let's say that we want to export the images. You got 2 different ways. The hard way, the long way, which I'll just explain just in case, and of course the best way, which I'm going to explain in the next lesson. The basic and the long way would be you position your camera something like over here, and then you activate right over here this small icon, which is the save image. You can find this right over here in the status bar in Google Earth. You use this small icon, save image, simply click it. You'll get extra options over here, map options if you want to include bunch of title, description, legend, and that stuff. For this case, make sure you deactivate everything. You don't really want to include extra information and you want to keep it as real as possible, okay? And then you want to specify the resolution. Now keep in mind that, yes, if you use a basic resolution, the photogrammetry model, once we input the data into ArchiCAD, the process is going to be much faster, but at the cost or at the expense of quality. And of course, if you use 4K, 8K, or the maximum type of image possible, the data is going to be more precise. Since we're mapping a model from another model, of course, the quality is not going to be the best because we're creating a second model from the first model, okay? So of course, if you map everything from a real site, the quality is going to be significantly more. But the important thing here is to practice this workflow. So for this case, the sweet spot for me is HD, 1080 HD, okay? So you position the image, you simply hit save image, and we can, for example, create a new folder over here. Let's call it photogrammetry model info, something like that. I'll create, you can name it 1, 2, 3. It's the easiest way in this case. Well, the easiest way also for me, save the image. You save the image and then repeat the process. You move the camera a little bit to over here. Then you proceed, save the image, number 2. Okay. Then once again, save image and number 3. Then move the camera, save image, number 4, and so on. But let's be real over here, let's be honest, please don't do this process fully. You can just test it out with 1 or 2 images, just in case, because sometimes I do the efficient way, which I'm going to explain in a second, and then if I notice something missing, I just do a quick snapshot with this method, save image, and that's it. But please don't do it fully, because in the next lesson I'm going to explain the best way to generate the different images. So take a moment, just test this function out. Really simple, really basic. And so for the next lesson, we can proceed with the best way on how to create the images. Okay, so we commented the basic and longest and slowest method possible, but we got a better option. So what you want to do right over here, let's close the save image option over here. And what you want to start off is by recording a tour. Okay, so this tool is amazing because you can simulate a series of camera movements and you can simply record the camera movements with Google Earth. Okay, so what we want to do is let's activate this tool over here. It's going to give us this really small but visible icon right on the lower left corner. Okay, so you're going to use this option to start the recording, and then you can use the pause button over here to stop the recording. Okay, so how about we start off with a basic orbit. I'm just going to test the camera movement so it doesn't, it's going to trim over here in this corner, so you want to be careful, maybe center this a little bit better. And let's test it out once again. Make sure that the whole building is going to be visible. Maybe we can recenter the camera a little bit. Let's test it out for a third way. Just take a moment, test the movement of the camera out. And once you are completely sure and happy with the framing, with the camera position, we can proceed with the recording. So I think that, yes, this is going to be the one. So my starting point is going to be for this building right over here. This is the starting point. I'll just do a quick 360 and then stop the recording. Okay, so what we want to do is with this tool active, the record tour, let's simply hit the record and let's simply orbit this in just one whole circle. So let's click record. Then make sure you orbit. Okay, I did it on the other way around, but no problem. Okay, simply move the camera around. We stop and we stop the recording. Okay, so as you can see, it's going to, there it is. It's going to replicate the recording once again. And yes, that's pretty much it. So we can simply, you can notice over here, we got the small player. You can play this as many times as you want, but the movement of the camera has been recorded. Okay, once you're happy, let's click the save tour icon over here, proceed to save it. Let's save it as recording, drone recording 1 or drone tour 1, something like that. Okay, and simply save the tour. Let's press OK. So you got the drone tour 1 over here. I still got the Spanish recording from a long time ago when I recorded the course in Spanish, but you can always click this and reset it. Now let's proceed with the second tour. I'm going to position the camera completely perpendicular to the ground. Now do a zigzag movement for the whole building from the top view. Okay, something like that. This might be the starting point. Let's activate once again the record tour button. Let's start the recording and then simply use the arrows to create the zigzag movements. There it is. Okay, easy as that. Stop the recording. Let's visualize the movement. Okay, looking amazing. Much better than I expected. There it is. Let's save this. Once again, this is going to be drone tour number 2. And let's press OK. So right over here, we got drone tour 1, drone tour 2. If I remember well, you can right click this, rename this, delete this. I'm going to delete the Spanish version of this one. And you can rename this as many times as you need. But the important thing is if you double click the places, you got tour number 1 and then you got tour number 2. So take a moment, make sure you create your fly-throughs or tours. Once you have the both tours ready, let's proceed with the exportation process. Okay, once you have your tour ready, make sure you close the playback. Okay, just make sure that you close this. Doesn't matter the position of the camera, don't worry about this too much. And now what you want to do is, let's proceed over here to the tools in the menu bar, right over here, tools, and activate Movie Maker. Okay, this is a really simple and basic tool, but quite a powerful one, because what you can do is you can record this completely live with your own navigation, or you can simply take one of the tours you have previously created. Let's take drone tour number 1, okay? Then we need to specify where we want to save the images to. Let's browse the folder, and definitely make sure you create a folder for this tour, because you're going to export hundreds of images. Just keep that small detail in mind. Let's name this tour number 1. Okay, I'm just going to delete the test images we had from earlier. Let's select tour number 1, open, and then save as with the name 1. Simply basic as that. Okay. Then you got the video parameters. You can export this in as a video. Well, you can always take videos from ArchiCAD Metashape, but if I'm completely honest with you, I still think it's a little bit better if you set this to custom. You set the resolution for the picture size right over here, okay? And then in the file type, instead of having this something like MV4 or MOV format, you select JPG format over here. So it generates a sequence of a bunch of images, okay? So you got a movie which is going to last 8 seconds, and playing around with frames per second or images per second, you can define how many images the tour is going to create. So let's say we got a tour which lasts 8 seconds per 15 is going to create around 120 images. Maybe we can lower this to maybe 10 images per second. Let's see how it behaves. Set this to 1920 by 1080, okay, for full HD resolution. And then for picture quality, you definitely want to set this to maximum, okay, because it's going to define the render quality of this 3D photogrammetry model, okay? So maximum right over here is not going to impact too much the generation of the images. And yes, everything is looking good. So let's proceed, create movie. Let's give Google Earth Pro some time so it finishes up the exportation process. Looking good. And now let's see the final result. Over here, photogrammetry model. Let's open up tour number 1. And there it is. This is the final result we are expecting. What we want to do is create a bunch of images, a series of images, something like this, which will create the basic orbitation move for the building, okay? Now make sure that if you notice right in the very beginning, it's going to lag a little bit. So maybe we can delete the image number from 11 to the previous images, because it's pretty much the same. So I'm just going to take image number 11, then select with Shift image number 0 and delete them. Okay, so we got only unique images generating the orbit movement. Then for image 83, maybe I'll delete 84. Maybe 84 and 83, because it's going to repeat with the first image. Okay, so pretty much this is what we want to achieve with the generation of the sequence for our photogrammetry model. Okay, now let's proceed with the second tour. I'm going to do the same. Tools, Movie Maker. We switch this simply to drone tour number 2. The parameters can remain the same, but let's switch the folder. Instead of tour number 1, let's proceed with a new folder, which is going to be called tour number 2. Okay, select the folder, open this, save, and yes, we can proceed, create the movie. There it is, looking amazing. Now let's review the exportation. So we got a bunch of images. We still need to delete the first images, which is going to be from image number 8 all the way to the first image. So from image 8 to 0, we delete these ones, okay? Then we got unique images replicating the movement of the drone. It's looking amazing. And then at the very end, yeah, we can keep the last image, not much is going to happen. So yeah, we got a total around 70 image for tour number 2, and for tour number 1 we got around 80, also 70 images. So in total we got 140 images. Okay, So yeah, at the very end, this is the most important thing, to generate the scan with images, this type of sequence, okay, which looks amazing. As always, keep in mind that the time of the processing of the images is going to increase with two reasons, one of which is going to be determined by the amount of images, and the second reason is going to be determined by the resolution of the images. So keep that in mind, okay? As always, take as much time as you need. Make sure you practice Google Earth, make sure you create your 3D scan of this building. And with this, we can say we are done. We are pretty much done using Google Earth Pro. Okay, so for the next lesson, now we can start the workflow with ArchiSoft Metashape. Now onto the second software. We're going to use a tool called ArchiSoft Metashape, which is a decent tool. You got multiple other tools that will allow you to create photogrammetric model. You got reality capture, Pix4D, a bunch of different tools, but I personally have used ArchiSoft Metashape, quite a simple tool to use and quite an interesting tool to practice on the photogrammetric concepts, okay? Now the thing here with ArchiSoft Metashape is that you only have the possibility of using this software for a 30-day trial. So just keep that small detail in mind. It's not a free software like Google Earth. You're only going to be able to use the software for 30 days. If you like it, you can always go ahead and purchase. But for now, let's just test it out. Let's go ahead, into downloads. And in the downloads section, you can find over here ArchiSoft Metashape, the latest version. You got two separate editions, standard and professional. If I remember well, standard is going to be extremely basic. It will only allow you to create point cloud models, okay, which it ends over there. But the professional one will also allow you to create mesh model or triangle model. It will create texturized model and even more amazing stuff, okay? So for this case, I would highly recommend that you opt for the professional one. But if you're looking just for really basic stuff, you can proceed with the standard one. So for this case, select Windows, Mac, Linux, dependent upon your operating system. I'll select the professional for Windows. And the Metashape Pro installer is going to measure around 210 megabytes. Okay, so you can notice it's really light software, not so light like Google Earth Pro, but still it's a decently light software. So let's give it a few seconds to finish downloading in real time. And once you are done, right click it, properties, right click it, show more options, and you get this option over here, install. Don't worry, you don't get the run option. You have to right click, show more options, and install. Okay, so let's give it a few minutes to ready up the setup. There we have it. Okay, so you get this window. Let's press next. You can review the license agreement, accept the terms, and then hit next. Okay, so it's going to install the Metashape full features. It's going to install ArchiSoft Viewer and ArchiSoft Network Monitor. Now, in this case, I'm only going to really use ArchiSoft Metashape. So what I'm going to do is for the viewer, let's hit the X over here so we don't really install this one. And neither I want the network monitor because I won't be using really sophisticated processes for this case, okay? You can distribute the process and view the tile models. Well, I really only want the full version of ArchiSoft, okay? Let's hit the next button. It's going to define the route for the installation. Let's create a desktop shortcut so we can access this easily. Let's hit next and give it a few seconds to install the software. Okay, so in my case it took around 1-2 minutes, not so much. Let's hit finish. So pretty much we got the software installed. Right over here, ArchiSoft Metashape. Let's open this up so we can see if it's activated or we got to do something else. Don't worry about the command prompt. perfectly normal. You usually get this window with ArchiCAD Meta Shape. Let's see if it finishes up loading. And once it's done loading, we get this window over here, the professional activation. If you got a license, you can input. You can activate this offline, or in this case, what we want is a free 30-day trial. This is what we're interested in. You can also proceed using the software in demo mode, which is pretty much similar to what happens in ArchiCAD, where you can use the software, you can practice it as many times as you need forever. But the thing here is that you're not able to save, nor you're able to export results. So keep that in mind. But yeah, pretty much this is how you can install the software. In your case, hopefully you get the 30-day trial, press OK, and pretty much you're done and you can proceed with the software. So yeah, I'm just going to hit demo mode for now. If you notice, in demo mode, we're not able to save anything. It's going to tell us, hey, you're not able to save. But this is the most interesting thing that we want to visualize. We get all the options in workflow. We get photos, laser scans, model, texture, tiled model, point cloud, depth elevation matte, orthomosaic, and panoramas. So we're going to be interested in creating the point cloud model, and then creating the mesh model and the texturized type of model. So as always, take a moment, make sure that you generate the installation process correctly. And having said this, now we can proceed with the basic workflow. Alright, so once you have installed and opened ArchiCAD Meta Shape Professional, let's take a moment to comment a little bit about the interface of this software, okay? We got the menu bar, as per usual, with different types of software. We got file, we can save, we can export, import, all types of commands. We got the edit buttons over here, we got the view. You can activate the different parts of the interface through view. And right over here, you got timeline, you can create animations, properties, photos, console, jobs, toolbars, or you can even go full screen with F11, okay? Maybe you can activate photos once we start working with the photos or aligning them. It's going to be a little bit useful. So keep this small detail in mind. In view right over here, you can activate the different parts of the interface. And the most important thing here in Meta Shape, pretty much everything is going to be done right over here in workflow. So if I'm completely honest with you, this is just a step-by-step. First step, we add the photos or we add the folder. Finally, we're done with first step. Then second step, guess what? We align the photos, okay? If it's a laser scan, we can also align laser scans, okay? Then the third step, well, this is going to be a little bit mixed up, but actually the third step is we want to build the point cloud model. Okay, so this is the third step in our workflow. Then we got the fourth step, which is going to be build model. Okay, this is fourth step. Let's mark this in a different color. Then the next step is going to be building a texture for the mesh model. This is a fifth step. And then you can proceed with extra stuff, such as, for example, the creation of tiled models, the creation of depth elevation maps, orthomosaics, you can create panoramas. This we could say are extra results that Meta Shape will offer you. If you are professional in this field, go ahead, you can always use the different results. But for this case, I want to point out and make clear the objective for this section is to create everything up until we get the model, the texturized model, and of course the point cloud model. So this is going to be the objective for this section, but you can always create even more amazing results. Okay, so pretty much the workflow, that's how it's going to work. You don't need to learn anything else. Model, as the name implies, will allow you to select parts of your model in different types of selections, draw the points, draw polylines, transform the object, move the object, transfer regions, activate view modes. Then you got photo, which will allow you, it's just a we could say a mini version of Photoshop inside Meta Shape, which will also allow you to crop photos, to edit them, whatever you want to do with the photos. You got tools for orthomosaic edition, to managing orthomosaics, tools in general for pretty much everything, okay, markers, type points, point clouds, etc. And of course help, check for updates, the product and all that stuff. You got the toolbar, the main toolbar over here where you got the buttons to open the file, save the file, okay, redo, undo, the selection methods, if you want to move the objects. You also got the visualization of the different results. Right over here you can see this is going to be pretty useful once we get into the workflow, because right over here you can activate the basic point cloud or the dense point cloud over here. Then you can activate the model mesh, the texture mesh, orthomosaics, the depth elevation maps, etc. You got extra options for visualizing photos, scans. This one is new for me, I don't really know this one, but you also got extra options on how you want to visualize the model. You got the workspace, which is a little bit similar to, for example, the navigator in ArchiCAD, where we can select the floor plan, the model, the section, that stuff. In this case, we can select the photos, the scans, the type points models, the point cloud models, the mesh model, etc. Okay, so this is a workspace where you're going to open up the different results. Okay, you also got the canvas where all the magic is happening. You got the orbiting tool, which over here the navigation is going to be manual. But keep in mind, so you don't lose your camera position, just keep an eye out here in the position of your axis. Okay, so you can visualize the X, Y, and Z axis over here. So yeah, pretty much that's it for the interface. You can notice it's quite simple. So take a moment, analyze the interface, and for the next lesson, we will start with the general workflow. Alright, once you are familiar with the interface, let's proceed with the workflow. Okay, so let's add, how about we add maybe photos? You can choose from photos, you can add folders with multiple photos. Let's test out folders, let's see how this one is going to work. Let's select maybe this one and this one. Let's add the tour number 1 folder, set it to single cameras because we don't want something more dynamic, simple cameras, press OK. And we also want to add the second folder, workflow, add folder, and let's select the tour number 2. Also single cameras, okay? So you got the different images. It's going to, as you can notice, it's going to mix the images into one chunk. Okay, you can work even multiple models in the same project. So you can, for example, scan one building, then scan second building, and try to mix the models together, okay? Which is the chunk number 1. We can always, for example, right-click this, and we can use the rename function over here, call this main building. This is going to be the first chunk. So for the main building, we got, if you double-click the image, you can actually visualize it. Okay, so you can pretty much visualize in ArchiSoft the different images that you're going to input. Okay, so it's looking good. Yeah, if you notice, it's duplicated because the naming of the images was pretty much the same. So we got 2 images with the same name, but don't worry, ArchiSoft is going to do everything for you. Okay, so for this case, we are done importing the photos. Once you have the photos ready, you can also hit over here to close the tab, maybe go back to the model. And now let's proceed with workflow and use the align photo function we got over here. Okay, so in align photo, it will, well, the time it will take will of course depend on the amount of photos and the resolution of the photo, because it's not the same amount and hardware requirement in order to align 4K images versus full HD images. So keep that in mind, okay? Accuracy, let's set this to high. This process is fairly easy, fairly fast, so we can go ahead, maybe use high. If you feel that this process just takes too much time, feel free to adjust this to even medium or even low. This depends upon your computer, okay? Usually I set everything by default. It looks fine and worked so far perfectly fine with these parameters. So let's go ahead, press OK. And let's give ArchiSoft some time. It might take 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 hour. This depends upon a bunch of parameters. Okay, so let's give ArchiSoft some time. Once again, if it takes just way too long, you can always adjust the accuracy to medium or to something else. So in my case, yeah, it's advancing fairly fast. And there it is. So we got a point cloud model, which is a sparse point cloud model. Okay, before when this software was called instead of ArchiSoft, it used to be called Photoscan. This is the first version of the software I managed to use. This was called scarce point cloud. Now it's called type points, which are three-dimensional points which will allow us to align the photos correctly. Okay, so right over here, once you're done, if you're still in a photo, make sure you jump into model. You simply activate model over here, and now you can start visualizing the type points. And now, before we proceed with the next step, something really important to do is to visualize, to make sure that ArchiSoft has actually aligned everything correctly. So what you want to do is, let's click over here, let's hit the icon over here. So yes, slave camera is not going to actually do anything. You have to activate the camera icon. With the camera icon active, there it is. You can clearly see the photos aligned in a three-dimensional space. So you can clearly see that the tour number 2 has been correctly aligned by ArchiSoft, and the tour number, tour number 1 and the tour number 2 is also correctly aligned. So we can be completely sure that everything else is going to work perfectly. Yeah, you can also, for example, click over here. Well, we can deactivate the laser scan. We don't really need that. You can deactivate the thumbnails if you feel so. You can show the local access for each image right over here, but it's not going to be useful. But just do a quick visualization, make sure everything is aligned. And with this completely sure, now we can proceed with the next step. Okay, so we got a first glance at the model, but 51,000 points is a little bit low for us, because if we export this into ArchiCAD, well, it's going to be really hard to tell geometry apart from each other. So what we want to do for now is to increase the amount of points. Maybe instead of 51,000, we want to increase this up until 500,000, maybe 2 million points. In this manner, the point cloud model is going to be much more denser, and we can tell the shapes apart from each other. So let's proceed with the next step, workflow. And what we want to do is use this option, build point cloud. Okay. If you don't find in older versions of ArchiSoft, this used to be called build dense cloud. And instead of align photos, align photos is pretty much the same, but it's pretty much the same option, build dense cloud or build point cloud, pretty much the same. Keep in mind, this process will definitely take some time, so be patient. If it takes 5 minutes, 10 minutes, might take even 1 hour. This depends a bunch of parameters, but the main important one is going to be the quality. You can set this to high, you can set this to whichever quality you want to use. We can test it out first in medium. If we notice doesn't take that much time and we want to increase the quality a little bit more, we can move this to high. If ends relatively fast, we can move to ultra high. Now in my computer, I'm going to set this for now into medium. Okay, so in my case, I'm pretty much done with the model. It took less than a minute, maybe, minute, in between 1 minute, 2 minutes. Okay, so in my case, maybe I can proceed with a second time. If you restart the process, build point cloud is going to override the existing model. So you can even increase this to high, depends upon the quality of the model. Okay. Once you are done, you will notice that nothing really is going to change for the model. That's because we need to activate, instead of the type points we got over here, we need to activate the visualization of the point cloud model we got over here. And there it is. This is where the magic will start showing. Okay, so you can visualize now that everything looks much more denser than before. Okay, right over here you got a bunch of different options. You can display the point cloud as a solid. You can display this with colors. If you notice, with colors looks much better than the basic one. So usually I set this to colors. Okay, you can proceed with classes, which is going to give you a monochromatic model. Pretty much that's it. And you can also activate elevation. But we got an issue over here. Elevation is quite useful to measure the height of the model, but we still got a really important issue going on over here. If you notice, something's funny going on over here. You can see that the axis, I'll try to position this maybe in a top view. Okay, so this is the top view. And if you notice, the model is disaligned. So what we have to do is take the point cloud and maybe realign this. We can comment this in a little bit. But for now, yes, the elevation is not going to work properly because first we need to align the model. Okay, make sure you activate this. The best one for this case is going to be point cloud colors. Okay, make sure to activate this, and with this you can visualize your model pretty good. Okay, so in my case I got around 1,300,000 points. You can always proceed and increase the amount of point cloud or points using the quality over here. Okay, so I tested out the quality once again with high quality. It took around, instead of a minute, it raised up until 5 minutes. And instead of 1,003,000 points, now I have 5,003,000 points. Okay, and almost instantly you can see that the quality has significantly improved. This building now has a better fidelity, better shape fidelity, and we can recognize the geometry much better than before. So don't be afraid to experiment, to test out, mess around a little bit with the point cloud model. Feel free to do as many tests as you want in medium, high or low quality. And once you're happy with the result, we can proceed with the next series of steps. Okay, before we proceed with the workflow, we got to really do some adjustments here. And the most important one is, of course, align the model so it matches with the axis. Because if we export this as it is and import into ArchiCAD, we will have a lot of issues going on over there. So what you want to do is, in first place, you want to align the camera so it's from the top view. It's going to facilitate, make the process of aligning this much easier. If you, for example, much easier way of positioning the camera, if you go over here to the menu bar, hit the model button over here, you can find the predefined views. This one is extremely useful, okay? And you can simply position the camera wherever you want. Top, bottom, left, right, front, back. Okay, or you can press the key number 7, Ctrl plus 7, Ctrl plus 3, 3 or 1, or Ctrl plus 1. Okay, so I'm just going to hit the number 7, and there it is. This is the top view. How am I sure that this is the top view? If you pay attention to the axis, it's X, Y, and the Z axis is perfectly perpendicular. Okay, once this camera is aligned to the top view, what we have to do is activate the rotation of the objects. You want to hit right over here, the small arrow for this, this other icon over here, this one that looks like a pyramid. You got a bunch of different options. You can move the object, you can scale it, you can rotate it, you can reset everything or update everything. Okay, for this case, we only want to rotate the object. So let's activate the rotate function. Now, you need to be careful. Maybe I'll do a live zoom over here so you can visualize better. There it is. If you notice, well, we still got the different axes over here. But if I start moving an axis, you can notice that the axis over here, the orbiting too, but the axis for the camera remain pretty much the same. If once again you move this around, the axis of the camera will still remain the same. So what we want to do right over here is do the best to position the camera completely position the object completely perpendicular to the camera. So I'll take a minute, maybe a second over here, and there it is. I can say that I'm quite happy with this position. I can adjust this much better than later on. Now, before you move, once again, make sure that you, instead of having active this tool, the move object tool, you go back to the arrow tool, okay, which is going to allow you to once again start orbiting freely the model. Let's press the key number 7 once again, so we position back the top view. And now what we want to do is we want to delete the excess point clouds we got in the model. If we only want to maybe export this region, so be it. But we still need to delete everything else that we are not interested in. So you can do so really simple. Right over here next to the arrow tool, you got different types of selection: rectangular, circular, or even freeform, which is one of my favorites. Okay, let's try out the freeform. Let's activate this selection. Let's simply hold down left click so you select multiple parts of the model. And now let's carefully select the region we want to delete from the model, which is this street over here. Once you have selected that part of the model or the point cloud, you simply hit the delete key. Okay, instead of having 5 million points, now we got 3.8 million points. Okay, now let's simply proceed with everything we don't require. Once again, I'll select the part of the model I don't really want, maybe something like that, and simply hit the delete key. Okay, and there it is. The point cloud is looking much better than before. Okay, with just a little bit of context, but the context won't hurt anyone because in the end we're interested in only the building. Okay, let's see if this is aligned as intended. Once again, we have to really make sure that this is aligned as best as possible. So I'm going to go over here to model, predefined views. Let's visualize this from the left. And yeah, from the left, we can notice that it is not perfectly aligned. It's a little bit displaced. So I'm going to take a minute. Maybe I'll just make sure that this is perfectly aligned. Once again, we activate the rotate object tool and proceed to carefully rotate the object until it is completely aligned with all the views. Okay, so it's not going to be perfect, but right now it's much better than before. And now we can say we are pretty much done. This is how you can align your model, and of course this is how you can delete the excess you don't require. So in the end, in my personal case, I got from 5.8 million points, from 5.3, I don't really remember. We got only the most important stuff, which will measure 1.2 million points. So as always, take a moment, make sure that you work your model as best as possible. And having done this, we can proceed now with the next step. Alright, so we've got a nice looking model so far based upon points, a point cloud model. The good news is that we can proceed to export this in a special format and then simply import this into ArchiCAD and start using the model. Okay, but we can also go further with the creation of a mesh model or a model based upon polygons or triangles, however you want to say them. So let's proceed with the next step. Create a mesh model. Just as an extra, this is optional, this is completely to your own decision. Okay, what you can do is right over here in workflow, you can activate the build model option right over here. Okay, you activate build model. Okay, so you can take the source data. This is really important to keep an eye out because you want to specify that which type of data the model is going to be based off. Okay, so in this case, since we already got the point cloud, we definitely want to use the point cloud data. You can also go ahead with depth maps, with type points for the scarce point cloud, but for this case, let's go ahead with point cloud. You can go ahead with the surface type, whether it's going to be arbitrary, height field. I haven't tested out the height field, sounds interesting, but let's keep it simple as a 3D model, okay? You can proceed with quality, which is not going to allow you, but it's actually going to allow the amount of faces that your model is going to have, okay? You can proceed with a low amount of polygons, medium amount, high, or you can even, for example, customize this. Set an amount of polygons or triangles desired that you want for your model, okay? For this case, I already know from experience that I'm not much of a big fan of mesh models in ArchiCAD. I'll keep it simple. How about a medium type of model, okay? You can always divide this in blocks, but I'll skip this step for now, and the advanced, I'm going to leave it as it is, okay? Let's press OK, let's see how it's going to behave. It is recommended to be using depth map. Well, we can proceed with depth map, that's new for me, but let's proceed from the point cloud. This is the method I've been using for a long time. I'm going to be honest with you, that was really quick. I might even, since it took like less than 20 seconds, I might even consider switching this to high. It's going to take less than a minute. Sure, let's try it out. Let's see what happens. Okay, so pretty much it's done. And once again, you're not going to see any change in your viewport because what you have to do is activate the correct visualization in this part, okay? So instead of visualizing the point cloud data, you want to visualize the model, okay? You can hit this triangle over here. Almost instantly, you will notice how the mesh model is being created. And right over here, you can start visualizing the different textures. Well, we can't call this a texture yet. What we can call this a style, okay? So you got the shaded style, which is going to look, I'm going to be honest with you, is going to look a little bit awful. We can fix this in a moment. We are going to comment how. You can activate the solid model, you can activate the wireframe one. This is where you can now visualize the triangles, okay? So you can visualize that some areas are going to be much denser in triangles, some are going to have a less triangle count. So it looks interesting, promising, and this is the reason why when you export this model into ArchiCAD, it's definitely going to lag a little bit. So usually what I like to do is filter out the triangles a little bit more. I usually only cut out the interesting part and delete the rest of the part. Okay, so it's a matter of configuring this. Let's go ahead with model elevation. This looks interesting. If you notice, since the model has been correctly aligned, the elevation now works a little bit better than before because it's going to tell you, okay, so this part over here is going to be lower and the highest point of the model is somewhere around here. That's interesting, okay? And you get a nice legend over here. This color is the highest point, this one is the lowest. So that's how the model is going to behave. Okay, so that's quite interesting. And you get the confidence, which to my understanding, this confidence model is also interesting, but the lower, the higher the value, it's going to tell you, okay, so this point over here had the most available data from the photo. So I'm 100% sure that this is the correct geometry. But if you notice on the corners right over here, this is where we got some information missing from the point cloud and from the photos. So it's going to be marked in red because this is where the least amount of confidence is. So this is more of an interpretation, and everything marked in blue is 100% is more accurate in general. Okay, so this part is accurate. This one is less accurate. So that's also an interesting visualization, the confidence level. Let's set it for now shaded, and how about we take a moment to fix a little bit this model. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to cut out this part over here, and I'm going to pretty much delete the rest of the model. Okay, the same technique is going to be applied. We simply select the freeform selection right over here, and proceed to select the parts directly. For example, we can select right over here and then simply hit the delete key, and pretty much that's it. And there it is. I'm only going to keep just a really tiny part of the model, which is a building indeed. And yes, right over here you also got the stats, how many faces. It's going to be around almost 200,000 faces with 100,000 vertices. So pretty much we're done with the model. We could say that almost done, but we still need to texture this a little bit. So the last part is quite simple. If you notice right over here, we got model texture, which is disabled. If you want this enabled, what you have to do is right over here, workflow, simply click the build texture option over here. Which type of texture? Keep it as a diffuse map. You can also create, for example, different types of maps if you're planning to use this photogrammetry model as well as a rendering aid. Okay, maybe in the background, maybe for composition. You can create displacement maps, occlusion maps, normal maps, which will allow you to configure the textures in more depth. Okay, for this case we want a diffuse map, general texture, source data are going to be the images we linked earlier. We can also take the 3D model, but the images is better. Okay, mapping mode, keep it as it is. And right over here you can specify the texture size in pixels, in general size right over here, or you can set a pixel size in meters. Well, I'm just going to keep it by default. Usually it works perfectly fine. Click OK. Give it a few seconds. This process is really fast, especially the model. Well, the model is still faster than the point cloud, but the texture is much faster. And there it is. In a matter of seconds, now you can, for example, click over here and you got the model texture option enabled. Once you enable this, the model looks really amazing. You got the texture definition. Okay. As you can see, yes, this is the final result. It won't look as perfect as maybe in the original source, which was the Google Earth model. But we can say it's close to the original source, and we can still use it for whichever purpose we want to use. Now, imagine the result if we actually go onto a site and we take the source images with high quality images with using a drone. Well, the model is going to look amazing. But for a model recreated from another model, it looks fairly decent. So yeah, pretty much we are done with our main workflow. So yeah, what we are missing is how we are going to incorporate this information into ArchiCAD, how we can start using this information, for which purposes. So that's something we're going to comment in a little bit, but we're still going to use the point cloud data and the model, and let's import the information into ArchiCAD. Alright, before we jump into ArchiCAD, we still need to export this in compatible formats. Okay, what we're going to do is, first off, let's go over here to File. Don't forget that you can always save your project if you're planning to continue this in another moment. It's going to use the format PSX, Metashape project. But yeah, for this case, we want to go ahead, File, Export, and right over here you got multiple options. You can export point cloud, you can export the model, the two we already got. You can export cameras, references, texture, convert images, render images. Well, you got a bunch of different options. For this case, we only want to export the point cloud and the model. Okay, so let's proceed with export. First off, the point cloud, which is going to be around 1,000,000.8, something like that, points. And I already got this marked. The compatible format with ArchiCAD is going to be E57, and we got another format which is .xyz, which won't appear in this list. Okay, so from all these types of formats, the one you definitely want to use if you're planning to import into ArchiCAD is the E57 type of format. Okay, let's name this point cloud. Let's save this. We got some parameters, which source data you want to export. you definitely want to make sure that this says point cloud. You can also, for example, export the scarce point cloud or the type points, but remember that this has less amount of points. So just make sure that over here it says point clouds. You can also check the attributes you want to include. Classification normal color sounds good. And yeah, it's looking good. Let's press OK. And now we are done with the first process. Let's go back a little bit. There it is. We got the E57 format over here. Okay. Let's proceed now with the model, not the point cloud, which was this information, but the physical model, the mesh model. For this case, File, Export, and we're going to go ahead with Model. In the formats that ArchiCAD will accept, or the best formats that will work with ArchiCAD, I also have it marked down or pre-selected over here, which is a Collada file. This is just amazing. So Collada file is definitely going to work with ArchiCAD, the best format from my experience. You can also try the Wavefront OBJ format. You got the 3ds model format. These are also compatible. Well, you got the STO model, which is more for 3D printing. You got the classical FBX format. Yeah, that's pretty much it. You also got Google Earth KMZ, but let's keep it just in these 3 formats. The best one is going to be definitely Collada. So let's keep it simple. I'm going to keep it at Collada, and let's name this mesh model Collada. Okay, save. You also get extra options over here. How do you want to export the texture? If you want to make a backup or a copy of the texture in whichever format you want to use. And if you want to export extra parameters, usually I just set it as it is by default, press OK. And now we are done with the exportation. So you're going to notice we get the E57 point cloud, the mesh model, and an extra copy of the texture, which is going to be the map that can be applied to the mesh model in a specific mapping manner. But yeah, it's going to create an extra copy over here, which is optional. Don't worry, when we export this into ArchiCAD, it's most likely already has the texture incorporated. Okay, so take a moment, make sure you export this in both formats. So for the next lesson, we proceed with a new project in ArchiCAD, and we test out this information inside ArchiCAD. Alright, so this is going to be the fun part. How do these models come into play inside ArchiCAD? First off, let's try out the point cloud. We're going to go over here to File. We're going to go into interoperability. This is the option we want to find. And then we want to use this one, which is the import point clouds, okay, which is right actually above the surveyor's data function we already reviewed in previous courses. Interesting one. But let's try out the import point cloud. Okay, we're going to select, if you notice over here what I told you, we only got 2 compatible formats with ArchiCAD, E57 and XYZ type of format. Okay, so luckily for us, we already got this in E57. Let's proceed and select the photogrammetry model we got over here and select the point cloud model right over here. Sounds good. Let's proceed with open. Let's open this model. Now, if you want to skip ahead only one more step, I would recommend that you proceed with create and place. This is going to save you one extra step. You can also proceed with create, but this is a common mistake is that some of my students have made in the past. They create the model, but they won't see the model already placed in the viewport. You have to later on place it manually from objects. Okay, so just keep that small detail in mind. Okay, LC files in the folder. Okay, fair enough. Source name, object name, point cloud. Let's name it like built-in one point cloud, something like that. And let's definitely hit create and place. We don't want to only create, just create and place. Okay. Okay, so interestingly enough, that took around 1 minute process, but okay, let's proceed with origin at project origin. or we can specify this manually. If you want to place it automatically on the origin, go with the first one. For this case, I want to go ahead with one extra click to specify the location for my project, which I believe is going to stay also at the origin. Okay, let's see what happens in 3D. Yeah, if you notice right over here, it has imported everything, but it's extremely tiny. You want to use this option over here, the center view option, if you don't find it in 3D right away. But yeah, right here, it's definitely located right over here. But my guess is that this is extremely not to scale. If you notice, this is just going to be around 4 or 5 meters. So we have to make this model much longer. Okay. But yeah, this is how you can import the point cloud data. For some reason, it's lagging way too much for me. Yeah, it's still a little bit too many points for my computer to be able to process it. Or, well, it was temporary lag for some reason. It's back to normal. Okay, whatever. But yeah, we still need to scale this up. So what we want to do for this case, I'll go ahead into Google Maps and I'm going to simply measure, maybe take the reference point from this corner up until this corner. I'm simply going to measure the real distance between these 2 points. Okay, so right click it. It's not going to be obviously completely exact, but just to give you an idea how we can still scale this down or up, measure distance and measure distance. So we get that from this point to this point, it's going to be around 119. Let's round it up to 120 meters. Okay. And inside ArchiCAD, before proceeding, I'll make sure that I'm working in the same units, which are meters instead of millimeters. Well, that's my preferred unit in my case, but feel free to adjust this however you want. And inside ArchiCAD, we got that. Yeah, the amazing thing here is that the points are going to snap. So for example, you can snap this from one point, and then simply snap this to the other point. Okay, which is not going to be that easy, but just be really careful. So we got 4.84 meters. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'll divide 120 by 4.84. So this model has to be 24.79 times much more bigger. Okay, so having that factor, having that number, let's select the model, the object that we have created. If you try to scale this up using the scale tool, it's most likely not going to work. What you have to do is select the object, go into the settings dialog, and right over here in the custom settings, you will find that we get the model X, the model scale on X, Y, and Z. And this is where you want to take this value, 24.7933, Control V, and Control V. Okay, press OK, and there it is. This is going to be the real scale for this project. I'm just going to measure this one more time, just to double check this. Let's take this corner, okay, and let's measure the other end of the corner, and there it is. We get almost 120 meters. Close enough, close enough. We still need to be more careful, but it's looking much more decent than before. Okay, so the interesting thing here is that in the ground floor, now you can notice how the point cloud is going to start to behave. Maybe we can take this corner, move this to the origin over here, so the corner stays on this origin. Yes, the object is going to be related, of course, to the floor plan cut plane. So whichever value you input to your cut plane height to the current story, that value is going to allow you to display a part of your model. Okay, so if we switch this to maybe 3 meters, press OK, you can see that almost instantly you will notice that the model is being cut in a different manner. Okay, if you want to visualize everything, what you can do is, for example, maybe just extremely lazy and quick solution, but not recommended. Delete these stories and maybe set the cut plane something really extreme. We can show this like maybe, I don't know, like 100 meters. Let's see if this works out. Press OK. Okay, there it is. So it's going to fully show in the floor plan now. The setting was in floor plan cut plane, show up to the current story, 100 meters, and cut plane height something exaggerated like 90 meters. So that's the only way I found to visualize the whole object. I'm pretty sure that there's a better way, but it's also possible in this lazy manner, okay? But yeah, pretty much this is how you can start using the point cloud. The interesting thing here is that now, for example, you can take the wall tool, you can set basic measurement here, and then snapping the object, you can directly and freely start to model following the different snaps you get over here. So if we set this to maybe 40 meters, let's see if it works out. Activate the chained method and start modeling carefully. Maybe take this wall, activate the arrow and adjust the wall. So yeah, pretty much the point cloud becomes really practical because you can simply go ahead and take the point cloud as a general reference of the measurements for your building, okay? So this is how you can start using the point cloud. And finally, but not least, something really important to keep in mind. The point cloud is not going to be rendered if you're planning to create a photorealistic image. So for example, if we go into document, annotation, creative imaging, and maybe just a quick photo render projection, something funny is going to happen. The point cloud disappears and we only visualize the modeled elements. So keep that small detail in mind. It's not going to be rendered out. You can only visualize this in real time in your real-time model. Okay, so take a moment, check out the amazing benefits of the point cloud. Hopefully with this we can make clear how you can import this, how you can manage this, how you can start using this. And for the next lesson, let's do the same, but now with the mesh model. Okay, so we have imported the point cloud. Let's test out the mesh model now. Let's see how it behaves, okay? And oh boy, I'm going to be a little bit nervous about this one because I already know that the mesh model usually lacks way too much in ArchiCAD. So really be careful about this one. But let's proceed with interoperability, merge, and we can try the merge from file. This option should be able to import this. Yeah, this is the only option that we can try, merge from file. Let's select the Collada format, which we can find over here. There it is, Collada file. Okay, and let's go ahead. Let's select the photogrammetry model. And we got the mesh model over here, around 13 megabytes. Let's press open. Okay, and let's simply hit the left click to position the model. So it's going to take, this depends upon the weight of the model, the amount of triangles. Might take a minute, might take 2 minutes. Let's see how it behaves. Maybe seconds. But yeah, as you notice, it feels definitely really laggy, but because we got just way too many triangles going on over here. So yeah, you could try to go into custom settings, but you don't actually get a possibility to override everything. It's going to be really laggy in ground floor. Okay, the same probably will happen in 3D. It's going to be much more laggier in 3D than maybe in 2D. The simple fix we can apply in 3D would be to simply deactivate all the edges. What we can do is, for example, right click it, 3D styles, okay? And in simple shading or whichever style you have assigned, right over here in contours, you can simply deactivate this option, show contours. Press OK, and almost instantly it will look much more cleaner and the navigation is going to be much smoother or less laggy. Okay, so try this quick fix, going to work much better. Now we got to scale the model up. the same manner as we already did. We can always, for example, rotate this model. Okay, so you can pretty much use any type of rotation around the X, Y, Z axis. And for scaling, you want to activate the scaling arrow over here. The options are hidden. And you can pretty much do the same as we did with the point cloud. Take the factor for the scale. It's going to be 24, almost 25 times much bigger. It's Ctrl V, and Ctrl V. And press OK. So this is how you can also import your mesh model inside ArchiCAD. Let's maybe fix a little bit the positioning, but pretty sure that this is decent enough. Okay, maybe take this model, elevate it a little bit so it stays at the same height as yeah, if you notice, ArchiCAD is going to hide this because it's lagging way too much for me. That's the thing. So you can always use the mesh model however you want. If I'm honest with you, I still think that the point cloud is a better choice if you're planning to use it as a reference. And if you want something to show up as a context, or maybe for rendering purposes, you want to go ahead with the mesh model. Because the thing here is that if we try out the right click and photo render projection option once again, the interesting thing here is that now, if you notice right away, the mesh model is actually rendering out, while the point cloud model is still hidden. So point cloud is much faster, better for references, better as a quick context for your project, and mesh model is better for more visualization purposes. But keep in mind that this is going to be really laggy, and this one might also come in a little bit laggy dependent upon the amount of points, triangles, and your hardware. So as always, take a moment, check out these amazing options we got inside ArchiCAD. Hopefully with this I could make it clear. Some basics of photogrammetry, quite an impressive topic we got in general, quite a really interesting one. Practice the concept as many times as you need, and hopefully you can also try it out with a real case scenario using drones, using a scanner, and even more sophisticated techniques. So with this, we can put an end to this section and proceed with the conclusions. And we have reached the end of the journey. Yes, we did it. We have completed the course. It's been an interesting path, and besides congratulating you on persevering, I hope everything you have learned here will help you fully leverage the potential of these special solutions with ArchiCAD and other tools to elevate your future projects. As I always mention at the end of each course, the tools have a wide range of possibilities. There are so many parameters we can explore, but the most important thing is that you practice everything constantly. Because after all, you can take this course 1, 2, 3 or even 4 times, but what's truly important is how you implement these processes and techniques in your own workflow and environment. So what's the next step? Believe it or not, there are even more possibilities to explore with ArchiCAD and the integration of other software. With that in mind, I invite you to not stop learning. On my end, I'm continuously working to keep these and other courses updated. I will probably continue exploring and documenting more features and possibilities that ArchiCAD, Rhinoceros, Grasshopper, SketchUp, Revit, Twinmotion, and other tools have to offer in the future. So I invite you to check out my other courses on Udemy and stay tuned for upcoming publications and updates. And before you go, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a brief review about how you found this course. Your review will help me as an instructor to continuously improve and will also help the community and other students discover this amazing topic. I hope you have enjoyed the concepts, and if you need anything, we will stay in touch through the various channels the platform provides. With that said, I'll say goodbye for now, and I look forward to seeing you again in the future.